What's the best way to make a game without programming? By making a board game, of course. Board games are the ultimate form of gaming. They can't rely on fancy graphics, amazing soundtracks, or compelling stories to keep you hooked. They purely use game design to create a fun and entertaining experience. But how do you make a board game? Well, follow along as I share my story on how I was able to successfully publish my first board game, with the help of some friends, family, and of course, paper. So roll some dice, pick your meeple, and let's get started. To tell this story from the beginning, we need to go back to 2016. Now, I don't play board games all the time, but I do enjoy them on occasion. I think there's a lot of fun and strategy behind games like Survive, Escape from Atlantis, or even old games like Hare and Hound. But the number one problem I have with board games is that they're extremely expensive. Also, I feel like there's a lot of cool genres in video games that could be translated to a board game and actually could be a ton of fun. And during this time, I was looking for a game that I could play with my friends. And after searching for months, I just kind of gave up on the idea of finding that perfect board game for me. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to make my own game. So I started brainstorming and I came up with a game that was kind of like a dungeon crawler, almost like a roguelike, where you would have to go through floors and you'd actually have to fight enemies. You'd pick up cards and you'd fight enemies and you would level up like an RPG. I shared the idea with some family and they recommended me just to actually mock up the game. I know this seems like common sense, but it was a little bit intimidating because I didn't really know what went into making a board game. So I created a little mock-up using some index cards and actually played it with one of my family members. I remember them being incredibly confused and frustrated because I didn't know the rules and I literally was making up as I went on. One of the core mechanics I had for this game was that you'd actually build out the dungeon as you would explore it. And since I didn't even figure out how movement worked or how many spaces you can go, let's just say that the first round of the game was completely busted. So after learning what I didn't want in my game, I went back to the drawing board and tried to think of a new core mechanic. But that weekend I was meeting up with some friends and one of them kind of mentioned the idea of what if I brought the game and we'll test it. I thought that was a great idea, so I scrambled to rework the game to make it a little bit more playable for the group. When Friday rolled around, me and 3 other of my friends met at a local coffee shop and played the game for a couple hours. I was actually surprised to see how this crude mock-up of the game actually became something fun and playable in front of my eyes. By the end of the night, we actually figured out a lot of interesting mechanics that we could implement to the game and how we can make it to be more focused as a party game and less as this grindy RPG. And this ended up being the core gameplay that didn't really change much from this point. And that was that there was a dungeon that the players had to build out. And in this dungeon, there were 2 cards. There was a key card and there was a gate. And the players had to find the key as quickly as possible. Now, before they find the key, all the players are friendly and they can collect items by landing on treasure spaces. But after the key is found, all the players turn on each other. And the goal is to be the first person to go to the gate tile with the key. And everyone plays as a unique character, and not just 1 but 2. These characters range in strength, defense, speed, and even abilities. And that paired with the random generation of the dungeon made the game very different every time. It really felt like a multiplayer roguelike, but on paper. Summer started to roll by and I was working on Fantasy World at the time, which is a side-scrolling 2D MMO. So really this idea of a board game sat on the shelf for a couple months. And it wasn't until the fall semester that year that I started to work on the game again. Before they were on the fair team, Bonzo and Brad would actually watch me work on the game during class. And before I knew it, Bonzo and Brad were a part of the team and were helping create artwork and assets and sketches. Eventually, after making some amazing character concepts for the game, Bonzo moved on to work on Fantasy World. I still was unsure what I wanted to do with the game, and if it wasn't for the help of Brad, I don't think I would have been able to ever finish this game at all. At this point, the game was pretty refined. We had messed around with different items, balancing characters, implementing more stuff, but the core mechanics didn't change at all. We also came up with a name for the game, called the Keeyp, but majority of the work was just creating the artwork. I already established a style using thick vector outline artwork, and Brad picked it up flawlessly. We also convinced some of our professors to let us work on it during school. If it was an animation class, we would make animations for promotion for the Keeyp. If it was a packaging class, then we just used it to design the packaging for the game. But the game wasn't finished yet. So we decided it was time for us to set a deadline. The game needed to go out January 1st, 2018. Being only a couple months away, we started to brainstorm our marketing plan. Most people, when they want to publish their games, put it on something like Kickstarter. But for us, we didn't know if we had enough people to successfully launch a Kickstarter, so we figured we would do our own pre-orders. We figured we would make a shop, people could place their orders, and at the end of January, we would buy as many copies as we could, and then ship them out. But instead of actually mailing out copies, we actually drove to as many places as possible to hand deliver them, just so we could save on shipping costs. But we knew before we launched it, we needed to generate hype. So we decided to have a little gallery show at our art school, show off the process of how we made the game, show off some merchandise that you could buy there, and we even had a game night so people could come and actually test the game before it came out. We were also doing weekly live streams on Facebook to generate hype, and it was amazing to see how excited people got about this little board game. So when January 1st came by, we were surprised to see how quickly we got funded. With our first round, we were able to sell enough copies to buy actually extra and pay for the next batch. I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the craziest years of school, considering it was our senior year and we should have been more focused on, actually working on schoolwork and not releasing a board game. But it was an absolute blast to see the smiles of satisfaction people had when playing the game. Now to fast forward to the present day, the Keeyp has been sold in over 15 states, some people have even brought it into Canada. We also created expansion packs that really added to the gameplay, and to be honest, I still feel like there's so many expansions we can make to really add life to the Keeyp. It was also so cool to see the impact that the Keeyp had on other people's lives. There was a family that would play the Keeyp every single morning with their kids before they started their day. There's another person that used the Keeyp to teach strategy and rules to special needs kids. And also, one of my friends I grew up with, who is a huge cynic and hates everything, said it was the best board game he's ever played. And even though it has some flaws and it's not a perfect game, it still to this day is my favorite board game. And I know that may sound strange, but I did it. I achieved the dream of making a game that I loved and I want to play. But not only that, but I made friends along the way. I was able to reach out and talk to new people in our community, and it was just so cool to see the love and support of the people around you that wanted to see you thrive and be successful. Now, the only sad part about this story is that board games are expensive to produce, and that we really didn't make any profit during the Keeyp's lifetime. It was a lot of work for not a whole lot of reward. And that also means that when we sell out of our last copies, which we only have about 20 or 30 left, that we probably won't be reprinting it anytime soon, unless we're contacted by some publisher or there's enough interest. So if you're interested in getting a copy of the Keeyp for yourself, make sure to check out fearth.shop and get them before they're gone. I also just want to encourage you, if you have a dream to make a board game, a video game, a movie, a book, go for it and surround yourself with people that will inspire and encourage you. In total, it took about 2 years to create the Keeyp, and then we spent another year and a half working on it and developing it even more. But I just want to encourage you that whatever you want to make, go for it and give it all the energy and effort that you have. And even if it doesn't become a business or your dream job, you'll always look back at that time in your life and cherish it fondly. I know that I do, and that I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for that game. If you have any questions about the Keeyp or would like to see more stuff related to it, please leave a comment down below. Also, a huge shout out to James Kennedy and Rybread and the other fantastic Patreon supporters for helping me make videos like this. You guys are fantastic and I appreciate everything you do. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time for another Game Dev Adventure.